Are you ready for some football? Well, football is back. And we all know that the risk of injury to the player's body and mind is great. Leroy Butler, who invented the Lambeau Leap, described football as a 60-minute slow-motion car wreck. So we make sure that our athletes are covered with the appropriate equipment: shoulder pads, specially designed helmets, plastic guards for their joints and their arms and their legs, as well as shoes that will not let the player slip and thus injure a knee or an ankle or any other joint. Football uniforms and equipment are modern-day armor for our modern-day athletes. Before each practice and before each game, the athletes suit up so they can take the field. Well, in the closing verses of the letter to the church in Ephesus, the author told those listening to put on their suits of armor and called it the full armor of God. Now, the author was writing at the very beginning of the 2nd century in the Common Era, and Christians then faced a lot of pressure to conform, to turn away from the Christian way of life and conform to the Roman way of life. The Roman way of life was filled with idol worship, violence, slavery, overeating, overdrinking, and a whole lot of self-centeredness. Christians didn't live in the larger population. Instead, they were sequestered in a very small, very poor, very disease-ridden neighborhood called a ghetto. And they faced all of the issues that ghetto residents faced then, as well as now. And the temptations for them were great. The temptation to leave Christianity behind so they could have enough money, enough food, enough opportunities, and the protection that came with being a Roman citizen. Well, that temptation was always present. And in addition to poverty, hunger, and lack of opportunity, the new Emperor Trajan had just written letters to each of the governors of the regions of the Roman Empire, asking them to guard against Christians who he believed wanted to cause the fall of the Roman Empire. Consequently, Christians faced more prejudice and even a little bit more persecution than they had before. Well, the author of Ephesians knew the pressure and the temptation the church in Ephesus faced. So he told the Christians in Ephesus to protect themselves from these temptations, from these evils, by wearing the full armor of God. And the author used the imagery of the Roman soldier. Roman soldiers were a fixture in Roman cities, and they were the best equipped, the best trained, and the best outfitted soldiers on earth. Every Christian, for that matter, every Roman citizen, looked at the Roman soldier with awe and more than a touch of fear, because few people could kill an opponent as quickly and easily as a Roman soldier. Few people were better protected from attack than the Roman soldier. To protect themselves against temptation and evil, Christians were urged to protect their souls with the same metaphorical equipment that soldiers used to protect themselves during combat. Now, most of us do not face the same kind of temptations and the same kind of evils that were faced by early 2nd century Christians in Ephesus. But we do face our own version of temptations, and we do face our own version of evils that are found in our time and our location. And while our temptations and evils might seem tame to the Christians in Ephesus, they are just as lethal to our souls today as the temptations and evils were 2,000 years ago. We face the temptation of donor fatigue. We get requests for gifts of our time, our abilities, and our money every single day. And as we get ever closer, somebody just reminded us, we were short 1 week and a day of Christmas, of 4 months till Christmas. Isn't that just happy news? Christ is coming. Yeah. But we face the same, as we get requests for our time and our abilities and money every day now, wait till December. when those requests will come several at a time. And the church won't be left behind in those requests. We'll ask for more time. We'll ask for more abilities. And yeah, we want to make the budget by the end of the year. So yeah, the requests for our time and our abilities and our money just keep coming at us and coming at us and coming at us. And at some point we get sick and tired of the whole thing and we decide to stop caring. We tune out. We decide that nobody gets our time, nobody gets our abilities, and for sure, nobody's getting our money. We face the evil of donor fatigue and we face the evil of consumerism. I just read this week, and it disturbed me, because it cut a little close to home, that Americans waste 133 million pounds of food every year. That's 34,000 pounds every day. And most of us have more than enough food, we have more than enough clothes, we have more than enough cars, televisions, television stations, phones, computers, toys, and gadgets than we need. And yet we want more. We want what's newest and shiniest and even better yet, most expensive. And we're tempted to possess more and more and more, thinking that that is going to fill our souls, that we will finally be content, we'll finally be satisfied. We are tempted to value personal freedom more than we value the well-being of all of God's people. We dig in our heels and say, well, that's my right. I can't help what's happening to other people. This is my right. And we decide to do that with disregard for how any of our believed rights affect the greater good. We are tempted to face the evil of disregard for our planet and its well-being, and just look at the storms. We're tempted to use science to cross the line between God as the ruler of the universe onto our desire for the power to not only create but destroy. We're faced with the evil of addiction, narcotics, marijuana, tobacco, alcohol, online technology, sexual addictions. All of these are addictions that plague our community today. We face the evils of human trafficking. Human trafficking is now found in all 72 counties in the state of Wisconsin. We have boys and girls that are being kidnapped and sold to the highest bidder. We live with the evil of racism. Most of us kind of remember the early 1960s when we thought the civil rights movement took care of everything. And we look at now and say, hey, life's pretty good. We're doing all right. Until we realize that underneath the covers of our doing all right is still a whole lot of institutional racism, a whole lot of people who are being cut out of opportunities, being cut out of money, being cut out of the right to vote, being cut out of a lot of things simply because of the color of their skin or the ethnicity of their religion. We live with the evil of unfounded prejudice. We just don't like some people. We have no reason other than we just don't like them. We're tempted to judge too harshly. We face the evil of better-thanness, which is frankly one of my favorites because it's so much fun to kind of feel just one step better than everybody else. We all face the evil of better-thanness. We are tempted to value technology more than people. We're tempted to let our lives be ruled by fear. And the evils and the temptations we face might not be the same as those of the 2nd century, but we can use the same uniform that was used in the 1st century to fight the temptations and evils that we face today. The author told the listeners to put on the helmet, the belt, the armor, the boots, the shield, and the sword of God. And that helmet was God's saving power, the offer of redemption that God brings to each one of us that says, you are no longer somebody set adrift in the world, you are my person, and I am your God. And you don't have to worry about that because you are mine forever, and I am yours forever. We have the belt, and when the Roman soldier put on his belt, you knew that there was going to be a battle soon. That was the belt that held their tools for war. Well, we have the belt that lets us know that we are now armed with the truth of God. The armor that they wore was God's justice. Nothing could penetrate the desire for justice. The boots were the desire to share God's message, to go where it was needed to share the truth of God. Faith was the shield, and the sword was the Spirit of God that could cut through everything else, sharing God's love and God's hope and God's mercy. And followers of Jesus were encouraged to put on that full armor of God through prayer. Prayer, study, and worship were the tools that the followers used to build up their ability to withstand temptation. Their connection to God, found through prayer and study and worship, was built up to be strong enough to withstand any desire to side with temptation or evil. Their congregation was their legion of soldiers that stood with them to face temptations and to overcome evil in their time. And we have the same tools today to help us withstand temptations. We have the same possible connection today that we can strengthen connection with God and with the legion of soldiers around us, the legion of the body of Christ around us, that will help us stand up to temptation, that will help us stand up to the evils in our world. You might have seen in the paper this week that one of our youth has gotten into trouble again, Hakeem. Got into a fight and was arrested. This is not the first time in his life that he's faced that. This is not the first time in his life that he's had a run-in with the law. We pray it will be his last. But when we think about the full armor of God, it's like the airlines. The airlines say, put on your oxygen mask before you help others, so that you don't faint before you can help other people. Well, it's our job to put on our full armor of God, our connection to God, that love of God that keeps us strong. And then, once we are set, it's our job to reach out to our children. It's our job to reach out to our children, friends. And it's easy to get tired, isn't it? It's easy to say, I give up. It's easy to say nothing's going to help this child or any other who decides they're just going to keep getting in trouble. Well, friends, we have been equipped with the full armor of God. And whether we like it or not, Christians don't get to retire. We are filled with the same love. We have the same opportunity to resist temptation, the same opportunity to fight injustice, the same opportunity to smother someone who needs to be smothered with God's love. And that's the opportunity we have with every one of our children. And sometimes we get tired of it, don't we? I know my mom got tired of me some days. I knew it when she'd say, go outside and play in traffic. It happened quite a bit, actually, that she would say that. But she didn't give up. Well, we've got a young man, and I suspect we've got others in our congregation we're not aware of yet, that it would be easy to say, go outside and play in traffic, we're done. And some of us have been attempting to help for a long time, and those folks are tired. Well, there's a saying in sports, next man up. When somebody goes down with fatigue or injury, it's the next player off the bench who goes in to fight. The next player who gets off the bench who goes in to play for the team and for the well-being of the team. Well, it's time for the next man up. We've got a young man in our midst that we've cared for a long time who's in trouble. And we need to smother this young man with love, with the love of God. And if you've been doing that for a long time and you're tired, we get it. Everybody needs a year in the pew. That's what I call it. When you're just stressed out and done and you just need a year in the pew. You've had it with the church, you've had it with everything. You've got donor fatigue. You need a year in the pew to get filled again. And some of our folks have that. But a lot of us haven't gotten in the game yet. And it's time to smother this young man with love. Accountability, absolutely. But love. Because we don't get to give up. We don't get to let temptation win. We don't get to let evil win. It's time for us to step up, suit up, and get in the game. And that's how it is with all of our kids, isn't it? That's how it is with all of our people. We see somebody who's in trouble, and it's so easy to say, glad it's not my problem. I've been known to say that once or twice. But it is our problem. It is our work. It is our team. We have been given the full armor of God, the love of God, the desire to share the good news, the desire to spread justice, the sword of the Spirit, to break through all of the temptation and all of the evil and all of the problems and smother people with God's love. That's our job. And if we're tired, okay, take some time on the bench. But it's time for the rest of us to get in the game. Our role as followers of Jesus is to make sure that we are protected against temptation and evil by praying, studying, and worship. And then our job next is to make sure our children learn how to pray and study and worship and participate in a congregation so that they are equipped with protection against evil and temptation. And when they stray, it's our job to get the net and hook them back in. It's time to suit up, friends. It's time to suit up and get out on the field of life. It's our turn to play. Amen.